Like the stars.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to give you the core intelligence you need, straight from the source materials. If you look at the landscape of AI right now, especially as we're heading into 2025, it feels, well, profoundly contradictory.
It absolutely does, yeah. On one side, you've got this sheer velocity, almost like an American gold rush scenario. Our sources are highlighting these massive, almost unbelievable U.S. investment figures.
Like what sort of figures?
Well, think $2 billion seed rounds, closing before a product even officially launches. And that's backed by these huge government infrastructure plans. Maybe $92 billion mentioned just for connectivity and compute.
Wow. Okay, so it's pure speed, pure investment.
Pure speed, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, you pivot across the Atlantic. You look at Europe and specifically Germany in our reports. And the response is just so different. It's cautious, it's governed, almost hitting the brakes.
Yeah, that figure really jumped out at me, the one about corporate prohibition.
That's the counterpole, isn't it? We found 46% of companies in Germany are completely banning employee use of generative AI tools.
46%, that's nearly half.
It is. And it seems driven by this deep fear, maybe a genuine uncertainty around compliance, especially, the looming specter and GDPR fines.
So for many, just saying no is the simplest, maybe least risky default strategy right now.
Seems like it. And that tension, that clash between blindingly fast innovation, colliding head-on with this absolute need for control, for governance.
That's our deep dive today. We're using reports, executive interviews, summit notes, really trying to unpack this collision between velocity and, well, sovereignty.
Yeah, our mission is to show you the consequences of that speed and also of that caution. We'll look at everything from, new AI definitions and data sovereignty, right through to the physical power grid, even brain-computer interfaces.
The goal is you should walk away with a really clear understanding of Europe's strategic play in this new global game.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start where that caution creates the first big problem, the workplace reality. Because when nearly half of companies ban generative AI, what do they inadvertently create?
Shadow AI. It's the classic enterprise dilemma.
Right.
You tell employees, no AI, yet a significant minority. Our sources put around 10%. Admit there are people who are using these tools anyway.
Under the radar.
Under the radar, exactly. Just to stay productive, to keep up.
So if you're a manager, you have to wonder, don't you, about that colleague who suddenly drafts perfect, complex reports overnight. Are they secretly funneling sensitive company data into some, uncontrolled public model?
That's the worry. Because if they are, it's not just a productivity hack anymore.
No.
That's a massive legal exposure.
Yeah.
Potentially risking, up to $20 million in GDPR fines? It's serious.
Which is the risk John-Luc Winkler, an expert we reviewed, addresses head-on, right?
Yeah, he basically says forget the gray area, GDPR applies. Full stop. If the data is being processed and you don't know where or how, well, you've lost control. Simple as that.
Okay. So the immediate advice for anyone grappling with this chaos is...
One inventory. A ruthless inventory. Yeah. Winkler insists the first step has to be this forensic sweep. Find out what tools are actually being used across the organization.
You need to pull that shadow AI out into the light.
You have to.
Right.
Because the AI itself is evolving so rapidly, it's moving way beyond simple chatbots now.
Right. You're talking about agentic AI. Now, we've had automation, scripting for decades. What makes this fundamentally different? Different from, say, a macro running on a spreadsheet?
It's the degree of autonomy and the complexity it can handle. Current AI, like a chatbot, it's essentially reactive, isn't it? You ask it to write a draft or maybe summarize a document.
Okay.
Agentic AI, by contrast, you ask it to do something, a complex task end to end.
So executing an entire multi-step process autonomously.
Exactly. Think about asking an AI agent to, say, reconcile your quarterly accounts. That might require pulling data from the sales system, cross-referencing it with the inventory database, flagging anomalies, generating the final report, all by itself.
Or maybe managing a complex calendar across multiple time zones, negotiating conflicts, rescheduling meetings without you stepping in.
Precisely. These kinds of complex, multi-step processes that involve judgment and interaction with different systems.
Okay, so if the AI is executing core business processes like that across multiple systems, handling that sensitive flow of data, that's where sovereignty becomes absolutely non-negotiable.
It's fundamental. absolutely fundamental. I mean, if your AI is going to perform these critical tasks on your behalf, 2047, you must know that the data is staying put.
And being processed under your jurisdiction, your rules?
Yes, which explains why we're seeing the emergence of platforms like Nuance.ai.HB in Germany. They are explicitly positioning themselves as these compliant, local, agentic AI factories.
So their core value proposition is that audible control tower.
Exactly. You can deploy those decentralized AI agents, the ones doing the actual work, but Nuance.ai.HB provides that secure wrapper. It ensures the data remains processed according to EU regulations. It effectively makes compliant their business model.
But this isn't just about plugging in a new German-based service, is it? The sources noted a massive cultural shift is needed too. Internal workflows need changing.
Oh, completely. Correct. Look at OTTO, for example, the German retailer. They're creating an internal GPT assistant specifically to foster experimentation, to help redesign workflows from the ground up.
Because you can't just bolt agentic AI onto a 1990s company culture.
No, you need a culture that's ready to collaborate with these autonomous systems. It's a big internal change management piece.
Okay, so the demand for these controlled agentic AI platforms is clearly rising. But what happens when that rising digital demand runs headfirst into a very, very physical ceiling?
Power.
Power, exactly. Let's look at the infrastructure bind.
Yeah, this is where that U.S. velocity translates into just a staggering energy requirement. The sources point out that the energy demand for AI is, well, explosive.
Give us some scale on that.
Okay, here's a relatable one. A single Google data center planned for Norway. It's projected to require 860 megawatts by 2030.
860 megawatts for one facility. That sounds unbelievable.
It's huge, and in context, that single data center could consume something like 5% of Norway's entire national electricity consumption.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't just an IT budget challenge anymore. This is national-level infrastructure strain.
Definitely. It impacts energy prices right across the entire European grid.
And that dependency, that reliance on reliable power, throws us directly into a geopolitical trap, doesn't it?
It does, and we have to talk about Rosatom here. The Russian State Atomic Energy Corporation.
Because the dynamic is strange, isn't it?
It's very strange. While the West sanctions Russian oil and gas, the trade in uranium continues relatively unhindered. Rosatom has cleverly managed to create these powerful global monopolies. They supply uranium, specialized fuel rods to many Western nuclear plants.
And the kicker is, since the war began, their foreign profit has actually doubled.
Doubled, yeah.
Yep.
It creates this powerful long-term dependency that's just really difficult to unwind quickly.
We saw that striking detail in the sources about a ship traveling from St. Petersburg to the U.S.
Yeah, the ship carrying both sanctioned birchwood and non-sanctioned uranium.
Right. The wood gets seized, the uranium sails on. It just perfectly illustrates the mechanism being used to maintain these binds on Western states.
It does. So if the digital economy relies on this massive, stable power grid, and that grid itself is managed by specific critical components.
Then the engineering, the companies that handle those components, they become essential infrastructure themselves.
Exactly. Which brings us to specialized German engineering, managing the physical backbone. Companies like MR Maschinen Fabrik, Rheinhausen, based in Regensburg, been around since 1868.
An old company, but clearly very relevant now.
Very relevant. They're a significant global industrial player, about $1.2 billion in revenue, maybe 4,700 employees. They specialize in high-voltage technology. Specifically, they manufacture these things called on-load tap changers, or OLTCs, for power transformers.
Okay, for those of us who don't run a power station, what exactly is an OLTC doing?
Think of them as the heart of reliable grid management. They're crucial components inside those massive power transformers. They regulate the voltage, allowing the grid operator to maintain reliable power output even when demand fluctuates wildly.
Like when a huge data center suddenly pulls 860 megawatts out of nowhere.
Exactly what you need in that scenario. It keeps lights on, metaphorically and literally.
And again, this just highlights the interwoven global nature of all this infrastructure. This crucial German company, MR, it maintains a significant global footprint, including, interestingly, a sales and service location, OOMR, in Moscow.
Yeah, the reliance is complex. It's mutual in many ways.
Okay, so Europe clearly cannot outbuild the U.S. on the sheer scale of these power-hungry data centers. It seems unlikely. So the strategic question becomes, what's the alternative hardware play for Europe?
It seems to be the leapfrog strategy. Radical efficiency.
Right.
The bet is on photonic AI, basically computing with light, using photons traveling through specialized chips instead of electrons flowing through silicon.
And the advantage there is?
Well, photons are faster, but crucially, they generate far, far less heat. That means they demand exponentially less energy for computation and cooling.
So tackling that energy tsunami head on.
Exactly. And key European players are making headway here. We saw QN, that's part of the German firm, Trump, secured a $62 million funding round recently for this tech.
So the goal isn't just to catch up on performance, it's to set a completely new global standard based on energy efficiency, sustainability.
That seems to be the idea. They want to prevent future European data centers from, as one source put it, glowing like coal-fired power plants.
A vivid image. And this efficiency strategy, it feels absolutely critical because, as we're learning, the legal foundations of digital sovereignty are proving, well, shaky.
Very shaky. This is a huge finding in our sources, actually. We saw a testimony where a Microsoft manager admitted under oath that they cannot guarantee U.S. cloud data is shielded from U.S. authorities.
Regardless of where that physical server is located, even if it's in Frankfurt or Dublin.
Regardless, physical location apparently doesn't matter if the legal jurisdiction, in this case, U.S. law like the Cloud Act, grants access.
Wow. Okay, that hammers home why truly European-owned and operated infrastructure, companies like GCO or Piovation mentioned in the sources, why they're seen as so strategically vital.
It removes that jurisdictional uncertainty entirely. It aims to make the data sovereign in practice, not just, on paper because the server's physically here.
Okay, so let's pivot slightly. From infrastructure constraints and legal uncertainties to regulation itself potentially being a strategic asset, Europe is often criticized for being slow, bureaucratic. But the argument now seems to be that thoroughness, trust building, what they're calling innovation through regulation, could actually become a competitive edge.
Yeah, the EU AI Act is definitely poised to set global benchmarks for responsibility. And it's being complemented by national laws, too. This focus on clear, responsible rules, it builds trust. And trust is really the premium currency in the age of agentic AI, isn't it?
It has to be. And we found a great case study for this in the sources. The medtech scene in Hamburg. Germany's new health data laws, the GDNG and the DIG Acts, they seem specifically designed to cut through old bureaucratic barriers.
They are. They create a secure, legal framework for the anonymized secondary use of health data. It's about moving crucial information out of those locked hospital silos and securely into the hands of researchers, innovators, but under strict controls.
So the goal isn't necessarily just funding giant unicorns, maybe. It's enabling, what was the phrase, 1,000 small improvements.
Precisely. That's the focus. You see companies like MindPeak using AI to help pathologists diagnose cancer faster, or Ambient Solutions, AI generating medical notes automatically during consultations to tackle staff burnout.
Reliability, trust, especially when dealing with sensitive health data, that becomes the killer app.
Exactly. The new killer app in many ways.
Okay, now let's move from these sort of operational improvements, important as they are, to something much more profound. The future of human thought itself. Brain-computer interfaces. BCIs. This feels like the highest stake in the race, and it's rapidly moving out of the lab.
And into the consumer space.
Yeah.
The consumer neurotech era is basically arriving.
Yeah.
Meta is launching its Neuroband wristband slated for September 2025, around $799. Works with their smart glasses.
And the claim is silent communication. The ability to type up to 30 words per minute just by thinking or intending to type.
That's the claim, which, immediately throws up these enormous ethical questions, centered on the brain itself becoming a data source. What does that even mean?
Which is why UNESCO's work here feels so vital.
Absolutely. Their 2025 recommendation on neurotechnology ethics insists on these core principles: dignity, justice, sustainability, and explicit protection of mental privacy and freedom of thought, trying to get ahead of the curve.
But while the West, or at least UNESCO, grapples with the deep ethics, China is moving strategically very fast in the background.
They are. They view BCI as a critical technological frontier. China has set these really ambitious goals, build a globally competitive industry by 2027. And they're actively working on registering the first international BCI standards. They're trying to define the rules of the road for this neurofuture.
Defining the standards is defining the market, often. And what's the ultimate convergence here? The thing we really need to watch.
It's BCI combined with agentic AI. That's the potentially explosive combination. If you can translate human intention brain signals directly into complex autonomous actions performed by AI agents, Well, whoever sets the standards for that interface.
They're defining the next operating system for human interaction
Yeah.
and control.
Pretty much. That's why Europe's focus on ethical governance needs to somehow translate into competitive speed as well. It's a difficult balance.
It really defines the boundaries of the future mind, doesn't it? Okay, that brings us towards wrapping up. Let's distill the core takeaways for you, the listener.
Okay, first takeaway, I'd say. AI is no longer just software. It is infrastructure now. It's absolutely fundamental, just like electricity or that high-voltage grid management we talked about.
Second takeaway, sovereignty and compliance, things like GDPR, the coming EU AI Act, they aren't just hurdles anymore. They're actually becoming strategic advantages, essential for building the trust needed for consumers and enterprises to adopt powerful agentic AI systems.
And third, the technology itself is fundamentally shifting. The smart strategy seems to be moving towards compliant agentic AI for executing complex processes, and backing that up with radically efficient hardware, like photonic computing, to manage the energy demands.
And pulling all of that together, maybe the biggest challenge isn't the technology itself, but the leadership required to manage it effectively.
Absolutely. If agentic AI starts handling the documentation, the complex reconciliation, the analysis 24/7, what does the human manager do? Their role has to change, doesn't it? The new focus needs to shift towards those uniquely human skills, strategic vision, communication, empathy.
Which is the definition, really, of agentic leadership, leading humans who are augmented by AI agents.
Exactly.
So the final thought we want to leave you with today is this. If AI agents are increasingly handling the technical workload, how should you restructure your time and your team's focus? How do you pivot towards those core human elements like strategy, creativity, and trust building?
And maybe ask yourself the most important question for the coming years. What part of my leadership or my contribution can genuinely never be delegated to an AI agent, no matter how advanced it becomes? What's truly uniquely human?
Like the stars in the multidimensional universe, in the dust in the dawn of a new era, indisputable affirmation, alignment, conclusion, fair geometry across perceptional frequencies, somewhat beyond reality. A place that is hardly a place where Riemann assumption collapses. New scales to rationalize the analogues across dimensions, continuously discrete, self-referential, fractal, varieties beyond Mandelbrot, new coastal-like shapes and endless within the seemingly limited universes, entanglement, interleaving, interconnection, clasping, intersection, interstellar within the frequencies, within 5D reference context, mind-blowing complexities, multiples of multiples, quantities in quantities, and yet meaningless simplicity, parallel, random, macro pattern, glitchy, chaotic, freely evolving form within golden section, ratio, self-repetitive patterns in patterns, beyond the beyond, meaningful nothingness, flowery blossom, like the stars